at the ocean that makes us blue to the universe. Hey. Wish I could see the world from space. Yeah. SubhanAllah, the Creator. And it's taking my breath away. Hey, I'm so thankful I can say, just say Allah, 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 Allah. I see the sun, the stars, the moon. I join them all in praising you. Allah. So close to you, and everywhere I look around me, your creation's so wonderful, and the more that I think about it, makes me love you even more. How the river finds the way to the valley, it's just so magical, and the way the night turns into day, it's a miracle. I join them all in praising you. Allah, 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 Allah. I feel alive and I feel so good. I feel so close to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to our home solar workshop. I am Sevim Kalyonju, the Executive Director of Green Muslims. We are very happy to have you all here joining us this evening and learning how homeowners can help protect the planet by going solar. I'm here with my colleagues, Joelle Novi, Director of Interfaith Power and Light of DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia, Sister Bayinah Shaheed, whose home is actually powered by the sun, and Sukrit Mishra from Solar United Neighbors. Many thanks to tonight's co-sponsor, Masjid Muhammad, for making this event possible as well. So it turns out that this summer is actually an ideal time for those of you who own homes here in the DMV area to come together and go solar at home. Not only should we feel the call to preserve a livable climate by shifting in every way we can to cleaner power, but now clean energy is actually on sale, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, which we'll learn more about a little bit later. So most of our time tonight will be spent learning how to actually go solar, as we get practical guidance on how solar purchasing groups work from Sukrit Mishra of Solar United Neighbors. But throughout the evening, please feel free to share your questions in the chat while our guests are speaking. These will either be answered live or after the presentation. And then we'll conclude this evening's event by taking a few minutes to actually start the process of going solar by having attendees sign up for these purchasing groups and setting up the opportunities to see if their homes are actually a good fit for solar panels. So we'll plan to wrap up by Maghrib time, hopefully around 8:25, excuse me. But if you want to hang around a little bit afterwards to ask more personal questions, please feel free to do so. We will be sticking around for a little while afterwards. Before we begin the actual presentation, I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge that the land that we're living upon, all of us here in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, is the traditional territory of the Nacotchtank and the Piscataway peoples. Their presence is imbued in the lands and waters surrounding us. May we nurture our relationship with our indigenous neighbors and the shared responsibilities to their homelands where they all reside today. Thank you. So in Islam, we are actually taught that humans are the khalifa of the earth. And it should be noted that while the Arabic language contains, each word contains many, many translations in English, it's a very rich language. Khalifa, the singular, means not only the successor or the representative of God Almighty, but also steward or caretaker of the earth. We are told we are the Khalifa ul-Ard, fil ard, on earth or of earth. And thus we have been placed here by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, to take care of this planet. With this understanding of our responsibilities, combined with the fact that human-induced climate change is negatively impacting all of God's creation, we should all feel morally obligated to take action to fight climate change. One step that we can take is to decrease our reliance on fossil fuels through the use of solar power. Now, of course, not everyone has the means to make this change, especially if you do not own your own home. But if you do, you should definitely be looking into the opportunities of going solar for the good of the planet and everyone, then everything that reside upon it. And if helping the environment is not reason enough to be looking into putting solar panels on your home, then it should be noted that switching to solar at home has long-term financial benefits as well. And now with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's even more reason to make this switch. For those who don't have the opportunity, as for example, don't own their own homes, it should be noted that there are many other ways to help the planet as well, including actions at home and in your community, such as reducing waste and planting trees and native plants, as well as educating about both environmental needs and our religious obligations towards the planet. So I hope everyone who's here tonight can actually go solar, but if you can't and you want to find, or if you simply want to find other opportunities for helping the environment, please feel free to reach out to Green Muslims. You can always check out our website at greenmuslims.org or email us at contact@greenmuslims.org or reach out to me personally at sevim@greenmuslims.org. So before we get into the details of going solar through these purchasing groups, I think it helps to envision the outcome, the day when you get to dedicate your panels and start powering your home from the sun. Tonight, we're actually lucky enough to be joined by a sister who has done just that. Sister Bayinah Shaheed is here with us this evening, and we're going to chat a little bit about what she has done and what has resulted from this installation of solar panels. Thank you so much for being able to join us this evening, Sister Bayinah.
Thank you so much for inviting me to share my story.
So if you don't mind, I will start with just asking some questions, but if at any point you want to share any additional information, please feel free to do so. And those who are attending, if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop a note in the chat box and maybe those questions can be brought up as well. But especially later on after we've had the full presentation. But to start with, can you tell us a little bit about what actually inspired you to go solar, to make this change, and how did you start the process?
Well, what inspired me was receiving large electric bills. I mean, my bills would range from $175 to $200 a month. And I was on a tight budget, and I even enrolled in the PEPCO budget plan for several years, but that didn't lower my bill. It just kind of spread the payments across the year. And some months were higher than others. And so I decided I need to find some type of solution to lower my energy costs. And this is what inspired me to look into
Wow,
solar.
that's actually great to hear, because we will be talking about the long-term financial benefits to this, but that actually was what drove you to make this change, whereas I'm sure many people worry, oh, I can't afford to do this right now. Can you tell us a little bit about how the process went of making that switch to solar power?
Okay, lots of prayers and du'as, asking Allah to give me some type of solution to help. And I tell you, prayers and du'as, they do work. Because it so happened that the company that I'm currently with, they were canvassing the area. They were walking around and they were knocking on the doors, and they shared their company with me. But prior to that, I had switched to another energy company to try to lower my bills, but that, worked for a few minutes, a few years, but then the cost skyrocketed again. So I decided to switch back to Pepco, and the panel, the electric bill kept going, fluctuating up and down. And I decided I had to figure out something, but I did hear about solar panels, but it didn't interest me at the moment until this company stopped by and they shared their company with me, and that kind of prompted me to start the process.
So the main step was the fact that they actually visited your home and you found out about it, but what happened after that? Can you tell us a little bit about how the whole installation process went?
Yeah, I invited them in. We sat down and talked. It was a 2-hour process. They shared all the information with me. It was a representative, very thorough. I asked a lot of questions, and they were able to answer my questions in a thorough manner. Like I mentioned, it was 2 hours. We filled out the paperwork for them to start the process and getting the permits, the installation of the panels. Someone had to come out and to survey to make sure that my home was in a area that the sun could actually, power the energy that I needed to for the panels. So all that took place, and then we signed the contract, and the company took care of all the steps that was needed to get the panels installed. It was a very easy process for me. I had to do anything but just listen and get all my answers, questions to my answers, answers to my questions. So it was a very easy process.
Wow, I was going to say it sounded very simple. Was there anything that concerned you in the process, or was there anything in particular that made you decide, yes, this is what I'm going to do?
I was a little skeptical at the very beginning. I mean, I had heard of solar panels, but didn't know the ins and outs. But like I mentioned earlier, that the representative that showed up in my home, she was very thorough, and she was patient, and she took her time and went through step by step of everything that would happen. And I have to say that it was not any red flags or anything that popped up during the process. It was very easy.
Do you recall some of those steps that were shared and that eventually took place? How did the process work of having the panels installed?
After we signed the paperwork, the company went down to DC government. They had to get a permit to allow them to install the panels. DC came out and inspected to make sure that things were, I guess everything, was in place to be able to be installed. Because I think at one point, DC was not allowing certain solar companies to come into the city. So this company, they were, I guess on their books as one of the companies that and everything was free. I mean, I didn't have to come out of my pocket with anything, because I've heard stories where some solar companies will give you one price, and then you have to come out of the pocket with this or that, but everything was upfront.
Good point to make. Sometimes it can sound too good to be true, but there really was no cost associated with having the installation done.
Not at all with the installation, but there is a monthly fee that I do have to pay, but it's very small. But it just reduced my cost of energy tremendously.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. That's good information to share. You hit on some key points right there. What in this whole process of making the change, do you have a favorite memory that you would like to share with everyone attending today?
Receiving my first bill, seeing how much my bill was cut, not just below half, but I'll say, well, as I mentioned earlier, my bill would run from $175 to $200 a month. Currently, and when I received my first bill, it was like $45 a month.
Wow.
I've never received anything higher than $45 a month.
Wow.
And that's in any given month of the year.
Very good to hear that. Do you have any thoughts as to why you think it might be, at this point, now that you've been using solar power, any thoughts as to why it's particularly important for Muslims to go solar these days?
Well, me as a Muslim, and all Muslims should really be good stewards of God's earth and do our part in moving the right direction of taking care of God's beautiful creation. I think applying solar power is one way in doing our part in the right direction and taking care of the earth. The earth is our home, and we should really take care of it and maintain and make sure that, it's a safe place to be.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's really amazing. Like, it's something that we need to be doing to care for the planet out of service to God himself. And yet there are financial benefits to doing it as well.
Yes.
If you have anything else that you would like to share, please do. But I also want to ask if you have any particular advice for others attending today who are considering going solar.
Yeah, if you are interested in having solar panels installed, I suggest that you do your research, and the company that you are looking into, ask lots of questions. Just don't stop with one company. Just kind of compare, costs, compare your notes, and then go with the company that best suits your needs. And if you're looking to lower your utility bills, installing solar panels is the way to go. The way to go.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we wrap up our discussion here? Or did you hit everything that you were planning?
I think I just feel that, since I've had my solar panels installed, I feel a sense of giving back to the earth and doing my part in what God has asked us to do when he placed us here on this earth to take care of what he's provided us with.
I mean, yes, thank you for making that effort and then coming here tonight to share your experience with everyone. Now, you're located in Washington, D.C., correct?
Yes, correct, yes.
But we are open to everyone here in the DMV today, so there are opportunities to share. One question that has come up is when you actually got your panels installed.
In 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And definitely no regrets since then, I take it.
None. I wish the gas company would do something similar to this. So, yes, that would be great.
So thank you so much. I hope if anyone has any other questions that come up, please feel free to share them in the chat, and we will find some way to get them answered before our presentation is over today. We're doing well on time, but I think we're ready to move on. So it's my pleasure to actually introduce another speaker right now who's going to give us key information in how to make this process possible. Sukrit Mishra is here from Solar United Neighbors, which we will sometimes refer to as SUN. It's a very good acronym, and is here to tell us about SUN's residential solar purchasing groups called Capital Area Solar Switch. So it's here for the DMV region, and it's a way to help you get involved. And you are actually going to have an opportunity to sign up for one today. Sukrit is the DC program director of Solar United Neighbors, where he combines his passion for community development and organizing to empower communities to go solar. And we are grateful that he could actually be with us here tonight to do the presentation himself. So you are welcome. As mentioned earlier, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat while Sukrit is speaking, and we will either answer live or get to them after the presentation. And following the presentation, we're going to take a few minutes to actually sign up for these solar programs together, the co-ops. So there will be some time set aside where you can actually add your name to the list. And after that, we will all be staying online for questions and answers afterwards. Again, our goal is to finish up around 8:25, but we will be online for a little bit longer if your question didn't get addressed for any reason. So I think now I can pass it on to Sukrit and we will get going with the main part of this presentation. Again, Sister Bayinah, thank you so much for sharing. And we hope that others will have opportunities to do what she has been able to do and go solar at her home. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you for the generous introduction, Sister Sabine. And that was a really insightful chat with Sister Bayinah. I mean, I have heard this before, the motivations to go solar, and it never gets old when people get their first bill. They see these significant savings. I mean, when you're paying anywhere upwards of $150, $200 a month, it's a compelling proposition to go solar. But anywho, good evening, everyone. My name is Sukrit Mishra. I'm the DC Program Director at Solar United Neighbors, also known as SUN, and I'll refer to SUN during the presentation. And I will take this opportunity to give a 101 on the basics of solar, the technology, the economics and financing behind it, how the IRA that was passed last year is so beneficial to everyone, and how one can join the program this year. And with that, I'll stop prattling and share my screen and share my slide deck. Give me 1 second. Can everyone see this okay? Okay. All right. Side. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in. And this is pretty dense. We will be covering quite a bit during the presentation. So you're welcome to ask questions in between, but what I would suggest is just save them till the end, just to ensure that I stick to the time that's been allocated to me and I do not go off on a tangent off topic. And with that, let's get started. For starters, Solar United Neighbors, also known as SUN, we are based right off of DuPont Circle here in Washington, DC, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit, which basically means we maintain a neutral stance when it comes to specific recommendations around installers or anyone else in the solar business. And our mission is simple. It's triple faceted. Number one, it's to help people go solar, whether that's in our co-ops or outside of it, doesn't matter. We're just happy if people go solar. Number two, if they cannot afford to go solar or if their house is not a good match, that's fine. Our job is to educate them on the benefits of solar. And number three, progress is not a straight line. And once in a while, we do get pushbacks from local utility providers. And that's where we step in and we try to legislate and preserve and protect the rights of existing solar owners. And yeah, that's our general mission. In terms of our national impact in the past 10 years, we started in DC. Now we are working across the nation in 11 states, as well as Puerto Rico. And in that time, we have helped around 6,900 families go solar. I updated this number on Monday, so it might have hit a couple more families. That translates to around 58 megawatts of solar. If you're not a solar engineer or you don't understand these numbers, that's fine. That basically means that's a whole lot of people who have gone solar and basically offset any CO2 or greenhouse gas emissions. In one word, that's great. And these are usually our partners in the region. The big ones are Montgomery County Green Bank. We're also working with some other organizations within the local jurisdictions, and they help sustain our operations, help us expand the good work across Maryland. We are looking to grow beyond the capital region and expand into Eastern Shore and Anne Arundel. So they help us, keep the business running. So in terms of how we got started, quick inception story. Back in 2007, The person that you see over here, that's Anya Schoolman, our company founder and executive director. The person on the left, that's her son, Walter, and his friend Diego. I don't know if you remember the documentary back then by Al Gore. It was called Inconvenient Truth. They watched it in middle school, got inspired, came back home. And just for some context, Anya lives in Mount Pleasant, which is up here in DC. They basically said, Mom, we are inspired, we want to make a difference. What can we do? And they decided to get into solar energy. They explored the business, the scope, what are some of the hurdles. And Anya pretty soon realized back in 2007 that it was really pricey back then. There was a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy here. And that's when she formed her very first co-op of 50. We have more people joining, but that's when she formed our very first own co-op. It was around 50 families in the same neighborhood. They secured a bulk purchase rate, which is below the market rate. They basically navigated the whole journey together. And they were the first 50 people or customers we served in our co-op. And, fast forward to 2023, we now have members all across 50 states. That doesn't mean they're in the co-ops. We also help them go solar outside it. That translates to around 400 co-ops that we have run in those 16 years. And more than 8,000 homes have gone solar with us in that time. So we are still growing. And this is how we got started. So yeah, just to reiterate, triple faceted, we try to help people go solar. Number two, we help people join together to go solar. Sorry about that. I think Alexa got activated for no reason at all. But anyways, we help people go solar, help them join together, and we fight for their energy rights. That's our mission in a nutshell. And more importantly, similar to what Sister Bayinah said earlier, the big goal here is reducing that energy burden that folks, in the working class communities are adversely affected by. They face more of that burden at the end of each month when they pay their electricity bills. That's our big mission. To scale up solar to such an extent that it's cost competitive to fossil fuels. And it's a no-brainer for folks in the future when they explore solar options. So there are three parts to the presentation today. Number one is solar technology. I'll just give you the basics of solar. Number two is economics. I'll talk about the IRA, how it factors into the Maryland economy and what it looks like on your bill. And number three, I'll talk about the solar switch program we are running this year in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and how folks can join it. And with that, let's get started. Let's see. Okay, I'm so good on time. All right, number one, solar technology. What are solar PV cells? In a nutshell, they're also known as photovoltaic cells. And what they're basically doing is they capture the sunlight and they harness it into a usable form of electricity for your household. And usually this is what these panels look like. This is an example of a co-op member whose roof was not a good fit for a solar system. So they decided to install it at the ground. So it was a ground mounted system. That is also an option. But that's that's the basic function of solar panels. This is what it looks like if you zoom in, and this is what it looks like at the elementary level. That panel is made up of a lot of frames, components, and individual units. You do not have to be overwhelmed by this. This is what you have to know. This is what these panels look like. Anytime you're going for a walk around your neighborhood, it's hardly just one panel that's sitting on the roof. You'll usually see a collection. And that's where the installer refers to it as an array. That's basically more than one panel that stays on a rooftop. So when you do talk to vendors or sales reps in the future, they'll not probably call them panels. They'll just call it a solar system or an array. And that's what it means.
Excuse me, Sukrit, one moment. Someone is having trouble hearing you. Can you speak a little bit louder or closer, please? Sorry to interrupt.
Sure. No worries. Give me 1 second.
Okay, can you hear me okay? I just need someone to confirm. Is this better or?
Much better to me.
Okay, wonderful. I paid $120 for this. What a disappointment. But anyways, another thing you should know when it comes to panels is they don't just go on your roof directly. There's usually a medium that's installed in between them. It's called a racking system. The racking system is there basically to preserve the physical integrity and the structure of the roof so that it's not damaged. It also ensures that during sporadic weather patterns, rain, hail, or any other weather conditions, it preserves the physical integrity of your solar system. And that's what it looks like on a rooftop. This was one of the co-ops we did here in DC. That's the crew up over there following the EHS standards. But anywho, what I'm trying to say here is the majority of roofs are a good fit for solar. This is an example of an asphalt single roof. It could be a flat roof. It could be a metal roof. Most of them are a good fit for solar. The only exception here is slate roofs. Slate roofs, unfortunately, the material is a bit more fragile, a bit more delicate, and most installers get cold feet. They can work on it, but they don't want to take that risk because of how fragile it is. So when if you do have a slate roof and you reach out to installers, don't be shocked if they turn away or they just say, they defer to another installer. That's because, it's just fragile. And the installers who are open to working on it, they usually work on it for a hiked fee. So, just an FYI when you do reach out for consultations. And this is another example. This is a flat roof. Even with a flat roof, the panels are actually sloped slightly, just so that they can capture the sunlight at its peak degree, and that optimizes the production of your roof. This was installed on our vice president's home back in 2016 here in DC. What's happened here is they have clamped it down to this racking system, so there are no penetrations involved into your roof. That basically means your roof's insurance and anything else is unaffected. All right, the second component are inverters. So once those panels capture the energy, they capture it in DC or direct current. It then goes into the inverters, and the inverters are basically converting it from DC to AC, which is also known as alternating current. It usually comes in two forms. What you need to know is there's a string inverter and there's the option of a microinverter. String inverter is just one inverter. It's usually cheaper. It's basically regulating the whole system. The benefits are it's just one singular unit, easy to install. On the flip side, if it ever goes down or it runs into any issues, it may affect the whole production of the system, which is why at the current, what you'll see with most installers is they're offering microinverters. Microinverters are singular units that are embedded under each individual panel, which basically means in the future, if one of your panel goes down, that does not affect the production of the rest of the system. The rest of the system detects that, and they actually optimize and scale up their production to ensure that your system is not underproducing. It's also state of the art. So I would say 80 to 90% of the installers in the DMV, especially Maryland, are offering microinverters. And the third system component is the electrical panel. Most homes have this, and most of them are good enough for a solar system. I would say any home that was built after the 1960s, those panels should be good to go. But during the solar installation process, the installer will survey your roof, they will survey your property, they'll check your panel, and if it needs upgrading, they'll let you know, and they will cover this as a part of the installation process. What the panel basically does is it distributes that energy that the solar panels are producing in the most efficient way possible. So it basically assesses what exactly in your home is consuming electricity, and it distributes it in the most efficient way possible without affecting or overwhelming your solar system. And like I said, most panels are good to go. If your panel does need replacing, your installer will let you know. And the next thing is the two basic terms. Let me just move this down to make your lives easy. Let's keep it here. Okay, so the two basic terms you should know is kilowatts, which is also kW, versus kilowatt hours, which is kWh. Kilowatts is the system size for each single panel. So for example, what you see here is a system array or a solar array of 12 panels. Each of these panels has a system size, which is fixed at 350 watts. You multiply that by 12, it gets you 4,200 watts or 4.2 kilowatts that you see over here. I know this is really sciencey, but you need to know this before you reach out to an installer. Kilowatt hours, that's what you see on those bills with Pepco or any other utility provider. This varies from month to month, depending on the time of the year, how much electricity you're producing, and even your panels, depending on the time of the year, they might produce more, they might produce less in the winter months, and that's where the kilowatt hours vary. And in Maryland, on average, what I've seen in the last 5 years is that system sizes are, they vary from 4 kilowatts to 9 kilowatts. That depends on your utility bills, your goals, your budget, and what part of your roof is a good fit for solar. So you can size your system accordingly, and the installer will walk you through that process during the consultation. And this is what it comes to. Everything that I've covered, this is what it looks like on a diagram. So the first part is, let me just see if I can move this lower. No, okay, no worries. What you see here is the first part is the solar array. It's receiving the sunlight. It's converting it into, or it's receiving it in direct current or DC. It then goes to the solar inverter over here. Like I said, that's where the conversion takes place. It goes from DC to AC, also known as alternating current. Once that conversion happens, it then goes into your electric panel. And the panel basically is assessing where do you need the electricity in your home, and it distributes it across the household. And the last part is a utility meter. So with solar systems, the big benefit is, there might be times of the day in the summer where your system is overproducing. You do not need that much electricity, and that electricity does not go to waste. It actually goes back to the grid, and you're compensated or rewarded for that excess production. And you get those credits on your utility bills. That is basically known as net metering, and that's an added benefit of a solar system. So for example, in the summer months, you might be out of the home, you're not using anything in the house, but your panels are still working and they're producing all the electricity. Since you don't need it, it goes back to the grid and you're getting credited for that. And then after sunset, where your system might not be producing that solar energy, that's where you're getting those credits back from the grid and you're not being charged for that. And that's the benefit of net metering. It is a complicated topic. We have done webinars on this. People still have questions. So if you're confused, I get it. You can reach out to us at mdteam@solarunitedneighbors.org, and I'll be happy to drop it in the chat at the end of the presentation if it hasn't already. And yes, net metering is that benefit where any excess production, it does not go to waste, goes back to the grid. You get rewarded in the form of additional credits. And in those winter months or after sunset, where your system is not producing as much electricity, you use those credits and you're not charged for that on your utility bill. That's basically net metering. Moving on, what's a good roof for solar? We get this question all the time from people who are interested in going solar in the co-op or even exploring it outside the co-op. And usually it's a criteria of 3 points. The first one is orientation. I won't jump too much into the astronomy, but any roof that's facing the east, west, or southern direction is a good fit for solar, simply because we live in the northern hemisphere. The earth is leaning into the sun, which means the south-facing part of your roof is the best fit for solar. What might happen is, when you go around your neighborhood, if you see any solar owners, you might just see their south-facing roofs having 90 to 95% or even most of the solar system. That's not a coincidence. That's how the installer designs the system. They want to make sure that your system is producing as much solar energy during those peak sun hours between 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And if your south-facing roof is a good fit, it has a lot of space, that's where those panels go. The only exception here are north-facing roofs. You might not have a lot of panels there. Sometimes houses get disqualified because the only part of the roof that's good is the north-facing roof. So that's something to consider. Number 2, shading is a factor, unfortunately. So living in DC, we have a lot of people who live in row homes, and it's already compact. If you have excess shade on your roof during those peak sun hours from 9 to 4, it might not be a good fit. Having said that, as long as you have around, there's no magic number, but usually installers look for around 200 square feet of open space. If you have enough of that space that's not affected by that tree shade, you might still be a good fit. So if you feel like you're in that 50-50 zone, don't disqualify yourself. This is a service we provide pro bono, free of cost. Reach out to us, send us your physical address. We have our own system. We will assess your roof and let you know if you're a good fit for solar. And if you're not, there's still other options, which I'll cover later on. Number 3, like I said before, enough space. And installers usually in DC and Maryland, they look for at least 180 to 200 square feet of open space. As long as you hit that magic number or that minimum benchmark, installers will give you the benefit of doubt. Anything below that, it might not make a good investment, and that's why a lot of people get disqualified. And that's where the alternative comes in. If the installer determines that your roof is too old, the material's not good enough, or maybe there's too much tree shade, the alternative in Maryland is community solar. Let's see, how community solar basically works is you will not install a solar system on your rooftop. You can subscribe to a solar system or a community solar program off-site. It's usually in a solar farm or somewhere with a lot of open space. And what happens is you're subscribing, it's similar to any other subscription you have. You subscribe to a fixed number of panels outside your home. They're producing energy. And for every month that they produce, you get a set amount of credits. And those credits are given to you on your utility bill. And that's another alternative or option to going solar. A lot of people do this when, their roofs are affected by shade. This is popular in Maryland because we do have ambitious goals and we want to make sure everyone can participate in the benefits of going solar. And we actually have a community solar guide on our website. It may be dropped in the chat. If not, reach out to me. I'm happy to follow up with anyone who has questions about this. We have a database on our website where you can find community solar facilities next to you or around your neighborhood, and you can participate in them. The best part of this is usually it's a subscription price for every month or a fixed price for every kilowatt hour. So you're not paying upfront for whole system. So it is cheaper. You do not own the system, but you're still getting the benefits of solar. Moving on. Like I said, you can find some community solar farm near you. That is the website over there, cs.solarunitedneighbors.org. And if you miss out on this, or if you still need this after the presentation, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to share it with you. And I'll just hold on to this for the next 8 to 10 seconds if folks want to take a snapshot, and then we'll move on. All right, I will move on now. Another component when it comes to solar systems are batteries or battery backup. This is something that popped up back in 2017 or 2018. We have operations in Florida and Texas as well. And we started to realize a lot of people had questions about battery backups simply because they live in a hurricane-prone area during the hurricane season. The grid goes down, which means they do not have any electricity. Another thing to consider here is even for solar owners, as a safety mechanism, if the grid goes down, so do your panels. It's not because the panels can't work, it's just a safety mechanism. We do not want the panels producing extra electricity and sending it back to the grid and, giving an electric shock to anyone who is working on the grid to restore it or fix it. So as a mechanism, when the national or utility grid goes down, so do the solar systems. Now, if you live in a region where you have a lot of outages, you have any medical equipment or anything else that can never go offline, that's where you should have a solar battery, that's where you should have a battery backup, and that's usually integrated to your solar system. This ensures that you can never go offline and you're receiving electricity 24/7, even with the utility grid down. And this is, to be frank with you, this is not that popular an option in DC or Maryland or Virginia. I've seen more of a scope for this in Florida, Texas, Puerto Rico, and some clients who reach out to us in Louisiana outside the co-ops. So this is just an option, it's not an obligation. And like I said, you might need this if you live in a region with frequent utility outages, you have critical loads at home that can never go offline, such as medical equipment, or if you just want to be prepared for any disaster scenarios. As an example, This gentleman actually went solar with us. I believe this was back in 2016. And he installed a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery bank. If you don't know the capacity or don't understand it, all you should know is this is usually the median or the average size for a battery. And batteries usually run the critical loads. We do not, if you have a backyard jacuzzi or something, I do not recommend integrating that to your solar system because it will drain all the energy within the first couple of hours if the grid is down, and it's not a good investment. So the battery is usually good for critical loads such as the fridge, the microwave, some basic lights, and that's what the Johnsons did over here. They choose not to power their stove or dryer or anything that uses a lot of electricity, and they kept their household running during those emergency scenarios. Again, this is just an option, it's not an obligation. And we do have a guide. I'm sure it's in the chat. I do see a lot of bubbles, but you can find it at solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. We have a comprehensive battery guide, and you'll find a lot of information there, and you can decide if it's a good investment for you. If you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to us. All right, the last component of this is EV chargers. This is something we introduced to our co-ops back in 2019. Another benefit here is if you have an EV and if you already have a charger, the benefit is you can install a solar system and connect that EV charger to the solar system. So you're not just producing clean energy for your household, you can also power up your EVs with clean energy and save on your utility bills. The average price that we have seen in our programs is anywhere from $500 to $700 for the charging unit. And then there is an added price for the installation itself. And that's anywhere depending on the brand and depending on the size of the project, it's anywhere from $500 to $2,000. That's a total cost of $1,000 to $2,700 on average. And the reason it's so pricey is because of the wiring. It's usually made of copper. So if you install the EV charger station that's a bit further away from your car or your garage, that's where the price factors in, and that's where it gets pricier. If your home needs more trenching or more groundwork, it gets pricier. So no two EV projects are the same. Your installer will walk you through the process and they'll let you know what the average cost is. And again, this is just an added option, not an obligation. There are usually two types of chargers. The basic one is the level 1 charger. It is cheaper, it is basic. The flip side is it takes a lot of time to charge your EV, your electric vehicle. So most people or customers go for the level 2 charger. This requires a 240 volt outlet in your household, substantially faster. Folks usually charge their EVs overnight and then it's ready by the morning, and they don't lose any time out on this. And like I said, with the IRA provisions and all that stuff, it is cheaper than ever. And I'll go into the IRA provisions for this later on, but I would say around 5 to 10% of our co-op members invest in an EV charger or anything like this. It's not an obligation, it's just a nice feature. With that, let's get into the second part of this, which is the solar economics. And okay, I'm still looking good on time. And in a nutshell, since we started back in 2007, the cost of going solar, it was more of a boutique product. It was 4 times as pricey as it is today. Another way to explain this is the cost of going solar has come down by almost 75%. And after the ITCs are factored in, it's even more feasible of an investment. And just to break down the costs from the installer's perspective, what you see in this graph is around 50 to 60% of going solar is actually involved around customer acquisition and advertising. We have a lot of installers in the business. It is a really aggressive market. And the reason those solar costs are so inflated or escalated is because half of the costs for the installers is just acquiring customers. And that's where the co-ops come in. When we run these co-ops, we're running a bulk purchase, which means 40 or 50 people going solar at the same time in the same region. And we're eliminating those solar costs or their soft costs for them. That's why our co-ops on average are anywhere from 15 to 25% cheaper than going solar on your own. So that's what this graph shows. So the first big provision of the IRA that was passed last year is a federal tax credit. And what it's also known as ITCs or investment tax credits. This is set at 30% for the next decade. What this basically means is you can apply this to your total solar costs as long as you have a large enough federal tax liability. Let me give you an example. If you, let's say you install a solar system this year, and just a hypothetical number, let's say the cost of that system was $10,000. So you can apply 30% on that, which is $3,000. So it brings your cost down to $7,000. And you can apply this as long as you have a large enough federal tax liability. And another good news here after the IRA was passed is if you do not have a large enough liability in one federal year or one fiscal year, you can actually claim that in the next year. And you can roll this over for the next 10 years and still redeem that benefit. In the previous ITC, this was actually at 26%, and it was going to go down to 0 by 2028. After the IRA was passed, it's been capped or set at 30% for the next 10 years, and then it will steadily go down to 26% and into 22%. So there's plenty of time to go solar. If you do, if you're still deciding this year, you can always make the decision in the future. The ITC is not going away. Another big benefit here is if you're installing just an EV charger, or let's say you want to work, get some work on your roof done. As long as you're also installing a solar system as a part of that roof work, you can apply that 30% to the roof work as well. So that's another benefit once the IRA was passed. And if you have any questions about this, you can reach out to us. And your installer can also customize your system in such a way that you can redeem that benefit. So that 30% can be applied to your solar system, EV chargers, your solar, your roof work, or anything related to that. That's the big benefit here. And this is the big slide. This is what everyone come for. They want to see some solid numbers. This is what it looks like in terms of installing a solar system. Don't get overwhelmed by the numbers. Let me just break it down for you. What you see here are examples of 3 different solar system sizes. Oh, there's my cursor. So the smallest system size, as an example, is a 4 kilowatt system, and then an 8 kilowatt system, and then a 12. Let's stick to the smallest system here just to keep it simple. And I'll go row by row, sticking to the same system size. So in Maryland, what we have seen in our co-ops in the past 5 or 6 years, the average price of going solar is around $2.75 a watt. For a 4 kilowatt system, you multiply those two numbers and you come up with $11,000. That's the flat price that you're paying upfront to install your solar system. There are no adders. That's the flat price. And then that's where the IRA or the benefits of the IRA come in. The first one is the ITC that I covered in the previous slide. It's capped at 30%. So if you have a large enough federal tax liability, you apply 30% to $11,000, which comes out to $3,300, and that's deducted from the total cost. Another big benefit for folks who live in Montgomery County is the Clean Energy Grant. And this is actually a fixed pool of money every year. So, just be careful. Sometimes it does run out if there's a great demand for solar, but it's capped at $1,000 for every solar project. And anyone who lives in MoCo can apply for this. That's also deducted from your total system cost. So from $11,000, if you deduct both of these, you come up to around $5,880. Another benefit that you see over here is SREC. I will do my best to explain this without confusing anyone. It's also known as Solar Renewable Energy Credits. This is a benefit that's only available in some states, mostly on the East Coast. It's basically a reward that the government is giving to folks who are investing in clean energy. And what it basically means is once you install a solar system, once it starts producing clean energy in the form of solar, for every 1,000 kilowatt hours that your system produces, you get rewarded with a virtual credit in the form of an SREC. Maryland has an SREC market. I call it the solar stock exchange because it fluctuates up and down across the year, depending on the demand and supply. And that's an added benefit on the system. Depending on the broker that you sign up with, there are 2 big brokers in Maryland, SREC Trade and Sol Systems. depending on who you sign with, the contract, the terms. On average, it's around $205 per kilowatt. So that's an added benefit. It's deducted from your solar system, from the total costs. So the total cost comes out to around $5,800. That's just after the IRA. This is what you see over here. These are the benefits over the rest of the solar system's lifetime. The big benefit of a solar system is once you install it, it just sits there. It does its job for the next 25 years. A solar system runs anywhere from 25 to 30 years on average, producing up to 85% of its maximum capacity. That's one of the big benefits of solar energy. After you pay that flat price upfront, you don't pay anything for the next 25 years. You're just getting those benefits on your utility bills month after year for the next 25 years. And that's where the savings come in. So what we have done over here is using our own internal database and calculations. On average, Maryland residents, in that first year, you're saving around $750 on that utility bill. Again, this is a conservative estimate. It can be higher than this. Over 10 years, that goes up to around $8,100. Over the system's lifetime of 2,500 years, you're saving around $23,000. This is what you would have been paying to the utility that you're now saving by producing solar energy. So instead of actually spending around $5,800 on that solar system, over the 25 years, you're actually making a profit of around $16,000. Again, this is just a basic system. This can be higher, this can be a tad bit lower, depending on the system size, your roof space, your budget, and all that other stuff. These are just sample numbers. These are just averages, but this is what we have seen on average for the residents in Maryland. And you can scale this up to an 8 kilowatt system. Those savings go higher simply because larger system, producing more energy, you're getting more SREC money, there are more benefits. So you can scale it.
Do you have a chart for DC or for Virginia? I know they have different SREC program.
I do, but not in this presentation, unfortunately. This is just for Maryland, but happy to share it after the presentation for whoever needs it.
Great.
Yeah. And there are alternatives to buying solar systems. You can also seek loan products. And one of the big partners that we have is Green Bank here in MoCo, in Montgomery County. They're actually participating in the program this year. They have some products that one of the installers is open to working with. I cannot disclose names right now simply because we are a neutral nonprofit, but for any member who joins the co-op, they know who I'm talking about. But the big one is the Green Bank. They actually have LMI programs. They make the funding easy. And if you have any questions or get in touch with them, I'm happy to connect you to, her name is Cindy. She's actually running the product this year. She will let you know what products you qualify for, how you can redeem it in the program, and what your financing options are. Besides that, like I said, the grant, the clean energy grant, that's fixed at $1,000, but that depends on the funding, and I'm not sure how much of that funding is available or left this year. And another alternative is PPAs, or third-party ownership. What that basically means is if you cannot afford to go solar, or you cannot install the system because your roof's not a good fit, that's fine. You can still invest in a community solar program that I showed earlier, or a PPA. A PPA is where an installer comes by, they install the system free of cost to you. All you're paying for is a fixed price for every kilowatt hour that the system produces, and that's usually below the utility rate. Just as an example, in DC, let's say in MoCo in Montgomery County, the utility rate is, just an example, 12 cents per kilowatt hour. That PPA might have a contract where they're charging you 4 cents for that kilowatt hour. So you're not installing solar, but you're still saving up to 66% on your solar system. Again, these are technical. There are a lot of numbers involved. So if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to us. Finally, Solar Switch. That's a program that we're running this year. And what it basically means is the co-op model is also what I call the Costco model. Instead of just one person going solar on their own, we bulk people up in a local neighborhood or a specific region. And that's what we have done with Solar Switch this year. We are running 3 programs of Solar Switch. One's in Maryland, one's in DC, And the third one is in Northern Virginia as well as Fairfax. So depending on where you live, you can qualify for any of these. And the two big benefits are, number one, like I said, we're eliminating those soft costs for installers, which means they can give us a discounted price to our members. And members usually save anywhere from 15 to 25% as compared to going solar on their own. But the bigger benefit that that I've seen in the last few years is, solar can be intimidating. There are a lot of fine parts. There are a lot of concepts to absorb. You get a lot of proposals from installers. It can overwhelm you. It can confuse you. And as a member, the big benefit here is we will answer all those questions for you. We will hold your hand and walk you through the whole process, through the installation day, and even beyond. So if you need a second opinion on those numbers, those proposals, if your system runs into any troubles after the installation, you can reach out to us. We'll resolve it for you without any added cost. And we're basically the mediators. And that's one of the big benefits of the Solar Switch program. And this is what the timeline looks like. We actually launched the Maryland program back in May. We selected 2 installers for this program a couple of weeks ago. I'll just disclose the names. The 2 names are Solar Energy World, or SEW, and Lumina Solar. So it just depends on which county you live in. You'll be allocated accordingly to those installers. And we are keeping this group open until the end of August 30th. That's the last day to join the program, so there's still time. And usually once you receive that installer's proposal, you have 30 days to sign the contract. So what happens is, for instance, if you're inspired by this and you join the program tomorrow, what's going to happen is within 24 to 48 hours, the installer will reach out to you. They'll look at your rooftop remotely. They'll look at your electricity bills, and they'll let you know what your ideal system size is, your budget, and your upfront costs. That's your formal proposal. And then you have an additional 30 days to look at that proposal, reach out to us for any questions, and then make a decision on whether you want to commit to this proposal. If you do not want to commit to it, no worries at all. You can leave the program, no questions asked, free of cost. There's also no cost to join the program. That's another big benefit over here. So that's what the timeline looks like, open till the end of August. And assuming you sign a contract, our plan is to complete all the installations by, shouldn't say August, I would say more, my apologies, it should say January to February next year. So it's usually an install timeline of 5 to 6 months, not because the installer is slow, but because of the permitting. It takes a lot of time. That's out of our hands. What we plan to complete all the installations by February next year. That's what a timeline looks like. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. I know it was a lot. It's really dense. I appreciate you, tuning in, and happy to take any questions in the chat.
Thank you so much. So we're gonna, I guess we can take 1 or 2 questions now, and then we're gonna stop and sign up for one of the programs that you're eligible for, and then we will return and keep asking questions until everyone's questions have been asked. Sorry, I forgot to say, I am Joelle Novi, and I'm with Interfaith Power and Light. It's been such a pleasure to work with Sun and with Green Muslims on this program tonight. Does anyone want to ask any questions? We probably have time for 1 or 2.
Am I able to come off the mic? Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I have a question about I have a few questions, but I'll just stick to one. If you are trying to sell your home, but you haven't paid off on the loan for the solar panels, can you take it with you? What happens?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we did that a lot of times with the PPAs, or those cases where you're loaning that system. What we recommend is, before you sign a contract, look at the terms and ask the installer to provide some conditions where they allow you to either cancel the contract before you make the big move, or just have a small fee when you're moving houses, where it allows you to deinstall the system free of cost and move it alongside with you. So what I'm trying to say in a lot of words is ask them to stipulate some of those terms in the contract. They'll make it possible. And again, it's not just one loan product or one PPA out there. The solar industry has good actors. The solar industry has some bad actors. What we ask again and again and again is look at the contract, reach out to us for a second opinion. We'll let you know if they have those provisions and, you know, relieve you of that anxiety. And it can be done. That's what I'm trying to say.
Is there a cost?
Thank you.
Is there a cost to join your organization?
No. There's no cost to join the Solar Switch program. What's going to happen is once, I think, Joel, you'll share the link. Once you join that program, we'll ask you some questions about your rooftop, the size, your average builds, and we'll give you an honest assessment of as to whether you're a good fit. But there's no cost to join the program. There's no cost to leave the co-op or the program, provided you do so before signing a contract with the installer. As long as you leave the program before then, it's free of cost.
Thank you.
Of course.
To the other question about selling your house, I just want to say it seems that more and more people who are purchasing houses are looking for those green features, and actually it increases the value of your home to have the panels on there. I think, let's see if there's one more question, maybe. Any more questions live?
I can always ask one if you
Reddit,
really.
like the solar stock market.
What about the solar, the SREC program?
Is it annual or is it a one-time credit?
Is it annual, one-time credit?
Want me
Oh,
to
no,
try this?
no, that's a good question. With the SREX, it's an annual program. When you go to these brokers' websites, and the two big ones are Sold Systems and SREC Trade, I can't give specific recommendations here, so I'm going to watch my words, but they have different products. Depending on how much risk you want to take, you can sign up for a 3-year contract, you can sign up for a 1-year contract, you can sign up for a longer contract. It just depends on how much risk you want to take, but this is year-long, and you're going to be involved in an SREC contract throughout the whole system's lifetime for the next 25 years. And this is an added benefit. It's an additional revenue stream that residents in Maryland can redeem. It's not available everywhere. We have programs in Indiana and some other states, they don't even have it there. So year-long, and you can find more information at the brokers page.
I believe there are SRECs in DC and in Maryland and in Northern Virginia, but they have different values because SRECs are given value by the laws in each state. So the laws determine how much they're worth, and they are produced over time by your panels creating 1,000 kilowatt hours of solar energy. So,
Yeah.
but the reason that Sukrit is talking about being able to sell them up front is because there are SREC aggregators that are like a futures market in SRECs, where you say, okay, I'm going to sell all my SRECs that these panels are ever going to produce on the first day. And I'm going to take a loss on what they're probably worth and then it'll get a little more, it'll make it easier to earn back the cost of my solar panels by making that sale of SRECs early on. So SREC aggregators are a way of taking something that is actually only generated over time and getting all that money or some of that money in your pocket upfront.
Thank you again.
Yeah, and with SREX, I can go the whole day about this, explain the economics, but everyone's going to get confused. The number you saw in the presentation, that's the most conservative number. That's basically the upfront price where you're selling your SREX upfront for the next 10 or 15 years. That's the cheapest one. That's the safest one. But there are other options where you can make more money. It just depends on how much risk you want to take or what your plan is. So,
Is there a recommendation for a specific vendor for that or a supplier?
I can't give any recommendations. I mean, the only thing I can say is the two big brokers. What I can say is, if you join our Solar Switch program, you get a 50% discount on that broker fee with Sold Systems. It's not an obligation. I'm just letting you know, if you sign a contract with, if you sign an SREC contract with Sold Systems, you get a 50% discount on those broker fees. And if you have any questions about how to get that discount, reach out to me. I'll drop my email over here and I can follow up with you, but it's not an obligation, just an option.
Great, thank you.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
So we are going to pause right now and we're all gonna click one of the 3 links that I'm putting in the chat.